Thanks, Cyprus. Yeah, so Noronex was set up about 4 years ago. It's a dedicated copper-focused vehicle. We started out as a private company originally with assets in Ontario, Canada. And while it was still a private company, we came across an opportunity in the Kalahari copper belt in Namibia. This is going back to 2019. The company was listed on the ASX in late 2020. The ticker is NRX, and we've continued to build it as a copper vehicle since that date. I guess the focus here is trying to find copper projects in areas where we can have a district scale position. That's really key to us. We're trying to go to areas that have some known mineralization. In fact, our projects actually have existing resources, but also more importantly have significant exploration upside that we see can be worked on. So the company's been building steadily since the listing. For example, we had about 50,000 or 60,000 hectare package in Namibia going back just over 18 months ago, and through a series of joint ventures and new staking, we've managed to build that to around 600,000 hectares as of today. So the reason we're there is, copper's really about the decarbonisation thematic, and as you all heard from some others, that it obviously leads to a lot of new demand in the storage side, from graphite through to the battery metals, lithium, cobalt, nickel, etc. And our core group had actually spent a lot of time involved in some of those commodities previously. But what we particularly like about copper is that it's the key transmission system. So in the new world of increased storage, increased renewable generation, this is going to be one of the biggest sort of transformational changes we see, and not just us. A lot of serious commentators have talked about the change that's coming in the copper market, and investors are trying to position themselves for that today. And not just investors, also the large companies. We've got from the BHPs and Rios on down. You'll see many of these players trying to either explore, joint venture, build their copper their copper portfolios. So importantly, our team has extensive junior resource experience, but particularly in copper and in copper exploration, but also in the development of a copper mine. So we have a couple of senior former Sandfire executives on the board and management, and they've actually been involved in the full end-to-end process of finding the mine, developing the mine, financing, going through the copper marketing process. DeGrussa was a fantastic mine for Sandfire. It's coming to end of mine life, and about 2 or 3 years ago, a little bit longer ago, Sandfire started looking around for extensions, and one of the things they settled on was a mine near us on the Kalahari copper belt. So we're pretty cheap at the moment, like a lot of junior explorers, but that's probably the opportunity for incoming investors, we think. So snapshot on the cap structure, just very quickly. Sub 10 mil market cap. So, we're pretty well positioned from where we are. We think, that's more than backstopped by the current resources and assets we have, let alone the potential exploration upside. We've got good board management alignment, over 16%. The stock's trading around 4 cents. So the board includes Rob Klug. Rob and Bruce Hooper, our chief geologist, work together at Sandfire, and this is of interest to the strategy. You'll see sort of a little bit later on, but they were there for about a decade, and one of the deals they did back in 2019 was the acquisition of Mod Resources. Sandfire paid $160 million for that, and that's now being developed into the Mateo mine. Sandfire's putting in hundreds of millions of dollars to develop that mine. Rob and Bruce were intimately involved in that transaction and have a lot of experience. Bruce first worked on the Kalahari belt in Namibia many years ago, and has been a fan of it ever since. So the copper space, and this is you'll see various forms of this type of graph or forecast, but this is for example, a recent graph from S&P just from a week or two ago. They're forecasting copper to double from 25 million tonnes to around 50 million tonnes by 2035. Now, copper is one of the largest commodities by value, around $200 billion per annum. Iron ore is probably the lead, several multiples of that, and then gold and copper are fairly similar size at second and third. So it's a significant market, but it's also one of those ones where to provide that increase in demand, you're going to have to find significant supply on the mine side, and that just hasn't happened. And there's been people looking for new mines. There was a lot of discoveries a decade or two ago, and it's really been fairly sparse since then. The big companies are now going for new jurisdictions they probably wouldn't have looked at. They're looking deeper. They're looking in new areas, and there's a lot of activity trying to put your foot on new copper assets. There's basically a summary of the discoveries. So you'll see, pre-2010 there was pretty significant discoveries. There was kind of a 10-year, a decade of fairly flat copper prices, $5,000–6,000 per tonne, which probably inhibited the exploration. But you can see the results of that in the number of discoveries now. So we're trying to fill that gap if we can. And we're targeting sort of slightly higher grade projects, 1–1.5% ideally. Copper grades have been declining, mines have been getting deeper. The costs with labour, fuel, etc., increasing are getting higher. So the average grade of mined copper has been declining in the last decade by almost 2% a year to about 0.59%. So where are we? The African sedimentary copper belts are some of the great copper belts in the globe. So the Central African belt, DRC and Zambia, it's been mined for over 100 years. Had significant activity. I mean, the jurisdictions are probably harder to work up there, obviously, but even after 100 years of mining, Friedland was able to come up with a new discovery, Kamoa-Kakula, which is a cracker of a project, 1.7 billion tonnes at 2.5%. That was sitting at the end of the belt through new geological understanding of sedimentary copper and targeting. They were able to make this new discovery. And if you go down towards Namibia and Botswana, you have this Kalahari copper belt. That's around a 1,000-kilometre belt that runs from central Namibia into northern Botswana. It's a known belt, but it's relatively underexplored, and there's reasons behind that, partially due to it being covered by Kalahari Desert across a large chunk of it. There's been a lot of activity on that belt, though, and there's been some new mines. Cooper Canyon have a significant mine that they're setting up on the Botswana side. The Sandfire Mateo project is just across the border. Likewise, we have some significant projects on the Namibian side. It's sedimentary copper across the belt, and we're using some of the new geological understandings from the other discoveries to help in our targeting of new deposits here. Namibia is an excellent place to work, one of the leading jurisdictions over in Africa. We have a very experienced in-country team, and we're out there actively trying to build a portfolio. This is a more detailed summary of the belt. So just a little snapshot. We started off with the Vitvalai project back at the listing stage. Last September, the Snowball project, we did a joint venture with some very smart geophysicists who had targeted the Snowball project for a similar geological setting to places like Kamoa, and we've joint ventured into that to earn into the property. And then we've stayed further out towards the belt, the Humpback and Damara projects, which are really exciting and have some pretty interesting historical copper drilled on them. So we've now got about 5,600 kilometres. We started exploring this late last year. We were fortunate enough in our first round of drilling on the Vitvalai project, we discovered a new area, hadn't previously been drilled, had a 27 metre at 1.6% shallow hit, about 40 metres depth. which we're very excited about following that up, and we've been out there doing some more drilling recently, which will be, the assays will be coming fairly shortly. Across the border, as I said, there's the Kuprick and the Sandfire. So they're both, Kuprick's producing 60,000 tonnes per annum. Sandfire's close to producing or developing up to a 50,000 tonne per annum project. Sandfire's had some success in exploring further the A4 deposit. One of our junior one of the junior explorers recently made a discovery just across the border in Botswana likewise. But obviously the geology doesn't respect political borders. This is the same sedimentary copper across both sides, and we're pretty excited to have a significant package there. Our neighbours are Sandfire and Rio. You can see on the map there, they've got significant positions around us, and we're excited to sort of explore while we have high quality potential partners in the area. So the Vidfly project has an existing resource, inferred and indicated, 10 million tonnes at 1.3%. To put that in context, the Mateo project is about 50 million tonnes at 0.9%, and that was purchased back in 2019 for $160 million. So, if you can build on what we have there, there's a potentially significant reward from where we are today. It's all shallow. We've been doing shallow drilling, circa 150, 200 metres depth. Open pitable depth. We're getting some good chalcocite, which is good for future development, and we've recently completed a 14,000 metre program and followed up on the Darheim area. Some of the drill hits are set out in the table there. So across the belt, and including the Central African belt, you're looking for the contact point. That seems to be where we're getting success with the highest grades. So on the Darheim, up against this sandstone contact, we had decent copper a few hundred metres away, increasing in grade and width as we got up, and sort of culminating in this 27 metre, 1.6% hit up against the contact. If you can trace the contact points, then that gives you your best chance of trying to target a copper-rich area. You can use various techniques, soil geochemistry in some areas. If there's shallow cover, IP has also been successful in targeting. But the key thing is the theory around the contact point is the major geological sort of understanding and what we're trying to target. And we have a significant strike length of that. So we followed up with this Darheim. We've been out there and done another 13 holes, which just finished up a week or two ago. Drilled out 100 metre centres. We'd previously done 400 metre drilling in that area. So we're trying to refine the area around the some of the previous high grade areas, and as I said, look for this contact point. That's going to be one of the keys. There is some visible copper there. This is an area that has been prospected and known but not drilled before. On the left there you can see a picture of the malachite, the surface copper outcrop, which is a good clue. As I said, as you go further to the west, you end up in the Kalahari Desert, and you won't see as much of that. So moving to the east. Moving to the east, we have the Snowball joint venture. So what we're targeting out here is this basement margin high. Basement margin high. This is where the Central African targets were. This is where you're going to find potentially large deposits, and we've tried to trace the contact point. So we have a significant sort of exploration package. We've started some work earlier this year. We started with a few holes, and we're actually out there now drilling and targeting. There's a couple of targets there, which I'll take you through in a second, and the drill's actively exploring there. So the two key targets we're busy on at the moment are Phanes and Helm. So Phanes, we're using magnetics to target this contact point. It is undercover, so things like soil geochem don't seem to work as well in that kind of environment. But we're looking for the contact point, and Likewise at Helm, we're looking for a domal structure, which is similar to the Rod Resources Sandfire Mateo target. And those can be very good structural traps for large scale copper deposits. So they're the kind of targets we're looking at. And if we, if we're able to find something there, we'd keep drilling it and try and build it up to a resource. Going even further to the east, out towards the border there, we have the Humpback and Damara projects. So Humpback and Damara are the local areas. It's about 3,500 kilometres squared. This was drilled back in 14 through to 18 by Cooper Canyon, who have Zone 5 across the border. They do in joint venture with a local group. They had some pretty interesting hits, which are worthy of follow-up. 8 metres at 2.5% copper. And once again, this is all along the interpreted contact point that is where all these significant deposits are on each side of the border. So those are our next phase of exploration. We're waiting for environmental clearance certificates to be issued, which we think are not too far away. It's good that we've had confirmation there's copper. There's copper there to the not too far from the Snowball project, and we're looking to ideally start drilling later this year. There's a final piece which is what we call the Snowball tail, which has a few drill holes, which is sort of connecting the Vitvali and Snowball projects, and that's worthy of some further follow-up. Just finally, this was one of our original listing assets, but it's worth mentioning. This is a project in Ontario, Canada. Once again, copper focused. There's been a lot of activity in this area, both in gold, base metals, and lithium, and a number of the battery metals. Andrew Forrest private company bought Eagle's Nest, just to a few hundred kilometres to the north of us, at least. There's some significant mine development happening in the area, about 3 hours away from Thunder Bay, which is a key mining centre, and it's an existing copper project. It has a high grade resource running about 1.6 copper plus some good gold and silver. Last year we did some EM testing of it to look for extensions at depth. We did a short 4-hole program three months ago, found some potential gold rich extensions of it, which was interesting. And there's a project here with some value that we can also develop or potentially do something else with over time. So that's sort of another string to the bow, if you like. Okay, so where are we? We have a company that's got an existing JORC resource. So we've got around 10 million tonnes, 1.3% copper. So that's a pretty good start. We've completed about 14,000 metres drilling at Vitvali and around 3,000 metres at Snowball. We're now following up successful hits on those and exploring more at Snowball. The 27 metres at 1.6 copper is very encouraging. And we're looking for success ideally on the Snowball project, as well as further out towards Damara. So these base and margin highs are really the focus. And if we can find something there, we'd be pretty excited to continue. So the idea is for the company to keep drilling Dahom, Vitvali, Humpback. We'll keep refining our techniques. Based on the other sedimentary copper discoveries on the Kalahari Central African belts. It's a very exciting belt. It's known, but relatively underexplored, and we're unashamedly targeting a large new discovery out there in what we think is a very exciting province. So Cyprus, hopefully I've brought you back up to time, but if there's any questions there, happy to take them or follow them up at a later date.